Okay, guys, we're going to talk a little bit about this total addressable market for coffins. I did this yesterday and I had a recording and unfortunately lost it, but I hope this will clarify should you be having trouble. And you can follow along with us. And I want you to see the big deal with this when we're doing a total addressable market and market sizing. It's the thought framework, trying to get down to figures with our assumptions that are real world and applicable. Now, we do have a lot of information about many of these markets because they're well established. However, that doesn't really speak to what's really addressable necessarily for us and our services. So when we look at this, guys, we're going to look at not cheese. We're going to go down here and we're going to actually look at an example of the coffins. So the coffin is what you're charged with doing over the course of the day. So let me find the example. Okay, so here we go. So guys, we did this two different ways in class, okay? So when looking at the coffin, number one, we started with the US population. Now, what I didn't get was what is the mortality rate? We just kind of estimated here and made an estimate of what percentage of people are actually dying. So that's what's important here. Sometimes we might break this down the other way as we did with cheese, and we took away like 12% of people don't eat cheese. Therefore, that would be 88 or 0.88. In this case, we're saying that 2.5% of Americans die. So we want to turn that 2.5% into a decimal and say that's the mortality rate. Let me see if there is. I can find actually U.S. mortality rate. I don't know if it'll come up by year. Let's see. Yeah, it's not going to come up in a way that I think. Actually, here's the number of deaths right here. So we could have taken this number, just the number of deaths alone, and that could have been our potential population of customers. In this case, we kind of took a different tact, and we took kind of a mortality rate, and what we got down to is 3.8 million. Now, this was just a guess, by the way. This was not based in any kind of reasoning. However, this part was, of the Americans that do die, 47% are actually buried in a coffin, okay? Now, we could look at funeral costs and we could look at it differently, but this is the way we're going to look at it. This is our thought assumption process. So we're going to say that only 47%, 0.47 of this 2.5% actually get buried in a coffin. And so we come down here and that calculates for us because 330 million times 0.025, which is 2.5% times 47%, 0.47 yields this, which is about 3,877,000. Now, if I just looked here, right here under stats, not stacks, then you have right here the number of deaths in the population, okay? And this is, I believe, from 2019. Now, that's going to be much higher this year because of COVID. So if I came in here, I could have actually had a real estimate. The actual amount is 2.8 million. So that could have been a way that I did this research and I just whittled this down. Now, we're only buying one coffin, and the number of coffins are going to be 1 times this many people, or that's a little off, right? Because, well, it's not. And so we come down here, guys, and down here we've got 3.877 million units, so 3.8 million units, or 3.8 million coffins. The average price of a coffin is between 3,000 and 5,000, 2,000 should be 2,000 and 5,000. So we just took the median of that number, or the average, excuse me. And in this case, we got to this number. Now notice, I did put notations here, and to do that, you right-click, click outside, right here, click back in, and then you can insert a comment. And when you do that comment, that's where I want you to put the link. And you can see the comment. It's hard to see on this one because of the coloring, but it's right here. So you can actually see the comment. Now, we got our TAM here. What we took is our estimated total number of buyers or customers or consumers times the annual contract value. That could change if there was more frequency here, but because it's a coffin, it's only one. And we did that times the average price per unit. So amount of customers times the price times the frequency. Okay, and what we got was a $13.5 billion number. Now, that one is probably a bit high, and we know it's high because look, our total number of buyers is high. So let's kind of go down here and look at another one. Well, we started off with actually let's start with 320 million. We got 47%. Let's see. Excuse me. Our starting figure was 3 million. So we went from 2.8 million. Actually, let's change this to 2,800,000. I know the actual numbers. So where's the numbers? 2,839,205. Let's put that number in there. We know that. Okay. Now that's the amount of deaths. Okay. Amount of U.S. deaths in 2019. Now, I know I have a source for that. So let me go back here. Let me get that source, copy it, click out, click in, right click, comment, paste. Okay. Now, we know where that number came from. So it's right there. And here's my comment. Now, this 47%, this is the percentage of people, that are buried after dying, are buried, period. That's pretty clear. If you're being buried, yeah, you're probably dead. So we've only got 2 assumptions on this one, and that gets us to an estimated number of buyers right here of 1,334,426 times the frequency of purchase times the price of that purchase. And here we get a better estimate of the market. So let's see real quickly, what is the value of the coffin market? And let's see if we can get some information here. Market size of coffins, or coffin industry. This says right here the market size measured by revenue for coffin and casket was only 617 million. So we're a little high again, and that's okay. I think that also our estimate is probably high on the cost end. But, you know, it's one of those deals where it can change. Now, if you went to what is the cost of the burial of a burial, you could do it that way to where you're saying that, look, you know, an average burial costs $5,000 and that a casket is 33% of that, and that could change your assumptions here. So what I mean by that is, you know, we would still start with the number of deaths times 47%, but then we might have to get to arrive to this number, we might have done burials, and then we might have said that really only, you know, if a burial costs 50,000, really only a third of that is what's going to be the coffin, the coffin, 5,000, excuse me, would be the coffin. So like 1,500, 1,600, and that would change that dynamic and change that number. I think this is probably a little high. So if we were to go that route, this would go down to about 1,700, and we get smaller. So what I want you to see is that your assumptions can change the numbering. And after you finish this, and going through this and turning this in, I want you to read the article that has a tops down and a bottoms up. And really, if you have a top down and then a bottom up, you can take those and average them. They should be very similar, if not the same, if you've done a really good job. But bottom up is more difficult. However, it's the preferable method, and we're going to be looking at that after next week. So, guys, I hope this helps you kind of clarify a little bit the steps. Number one, you know, we're always looking for the amount of customers. And in this case, we then have assumptions. We're assuming that 0.25%, or excuse me, 2.5% of the U.S. population is going to die annually. Of those, 47% will be buried. And that gets me down to an estimated number of buyers. And in this case, we know that it's a frequency of once per annum or per year. And then below, we know that on average, these coffins are around $3,500, which gives us this figure. We know this is too high, and this is too high as well. And when we actually went statistically, we found the amount of deaths in the U.S. We know that only 47% of those actually get a coffin. And we lowered the price a little bit here to be more in line. Now, you could have kept this at the average, really, because you need at the low end of the average, because we know it's between 2,000 and 5,000, and you get that number. So it's not, it's a little high, but it's not superiorly high. And when you see the analysis in the article, I hope that it brings to you some clarity about what's going on in the coffin market. And here you can see, so you have the numbers here, is the marking sizing example that this author has done, okay? And so they're doing a bottom-up market sizing to start, and they're going to start with kind of what's around them. So right here, there's 2.8 million deaths per year, and right here it's only saying 39%. So ours was heavy on burials, so our data might not have been as good. If I come back up here and I change this to 0.39, it's going to be a different type of number. Oh, look, I'm getting tea. Lovely. Thank you, sir. Thank you, my friend.
Of course.
And so, you know, it's important to see if I change this to 39% here, then I'm really changing these numbers and they're being effective. So the better your data, the better your numbers, the better your TAM. That's your focus. When you finish, make sure you read this article here so you get an idea. Now, his average price is 2.500. Hey, we're pretty spot on, about 2.7 billion. Okay, so give it a go. Check this out. If you have more questions, please reach out to me. I hope you found this helpful and clarifying. Appreciate you. Thanks so much. Take care.